I am Daniel Daddy. Thanks so much for staying with us. It's 21 minutes past 9. We've been joined by Justice Emil Short. Good morning, Justice.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, and good morning to all your listeners.
Thanks for coming. Now, in the past couple of years, Airbus has been in the air. Past couple of days, Airbus has been in the air, apparently going bust from bribery scandals. It brings back memories of the 2009 era, where Shraj investigated some Ghanaian officials for receiving bribes from Maybe and Johnson between 1994 and 2000. Now, Justice Short, who is our guest on Corruption Watch today, was in charge when Shraj investigated the Maybe and Johnson case. Are there any similarities between the M&J case of 2009 and the Airbus case of 2020? That's what we're here to find out, the lessons and what we must do. Stay tuned. Welcome to Corruption Watch. Of course, is brought to you by the partners Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Ghana Integrity Initiative, GII, Ghana AntiCorruption Coalition, GACC, and Africa Center for International Law and Accountability, ASILA, and Joy FM. You can find us on Facebook, Corruption Watch Ghana, Twitter at CW Ghana, Instagram, Corruption Watch _GH, YouTube, Corruption Watch Ghana. The website is corruptionwatchghana.org. The hotline is 055 22033. 055 22033. The WhatsApp number is also 055 453 6295. 055 453 6295. Hashtag Wanamoni. Hashtag Ghana Bre. Corruption Watch is sponsored by Strengthening Action Against Corruption Stack. Now, today we feature one of our 6 segments on the show. It's AntiCorruption School. Now, usually on AntiCorruption School, we bring you resource persons to share their knowledge of anti-corruption cases and issues we feature on Corruption Watch in order to deepen our understanding of the issues. On today's segment, we have an anti-corruption personality interview, and our distinguished guest, as we've already introduced, is none other than Justice Emil Francis Short, the first Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. We're here to take a look at important cross-cutting corruption issues. For example, we'll assess the state of corruption in Ghana, as well as the effectiveness of state and institutional efforts to deal with corruption. Also on the agenda is political corruption, which includes political party financing. This is important because Ghana is heading into the polls in December 2020. So another big welcome to Justice Emil Francis Short, first Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Good morning once again.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming. So let's begin, of course, cutting to the chase. This issue has been making headlines in the past few days. What do you make of this alleged bribery of a Ghanaian elected official by Airbus?
Well, it's unfortunate that Ghana was implicated in this Airbus scandal. It's definitely going to have an effect on the perception of corruption within Ghana, the ranking that Ghana is going to have, both domestically and internationally, especially on Transparency International Watch. However, there has been a lot of speculation about who is government elected official 1 and who is intermediary 5 and so on. I'm not going to join the bandwagon to indulge in the speculation of who these individuals are. I think we should allow Mr. Martin Amidou to conduct his investigation, and then we'll have all the facts. I'm sure that he'll be able to get to the bottom of the case.
What about the role of Martin Amidou himself? Yesterday, we had Suleiman Abrahima mention how he was Interior Minister in the past, and so he served on the Armed Forces Council. He's been Attorney General, with a key government official when it comes to contracts. During this period, do you think that is something we should consider? Do you think he could be in a position of conflict?
Well, it's I wouldn't want to give a direct answer because since it might be an issue which will be raised in the courts, normally, as a matter of policy, I don't like to discuss issues which are going to be determined in the court or are likely to, be raised before the courts. So, but it is an important issue which has been raised, and so I think we would all have to wait and see if the issue is raised and how it is determined, by the courts. Definitely, he was part of the administration at the time, and it is a relevant issue. So, but
would you encourage that it is tested in court to at least serve as a precedent?
No, I'll leave it up to those who have an interest in testing the matter in court. But even if he is not able to handle the matter, let's not forget that there is a deputy special prosecutor and that there are other lawyers within the office. So the office is not just Martin Amido. There is a deputy special prosecutor. So I think we should keep that in mind, that even if he personally is unable to handle the matter because he was part of the administration at the time, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think the deputy special prosecutor was part of the administration. So it's possible that she might be able to handle the matter.
At least not in a way that Martin Amidu was, not playing those key roles that have been named by some of these watchers. So let's look at the case itself. Now, what are some of the corruption issues which it's raised, having looked at the nature of the issues that have been raised there? What are the key issues which should engage our attention in your view?
Well, the main allegation, of course, is that bribes were paid to these public officials in order to access contracts, and Ghana was purchasing military aircraft at the time. And so, in order to access these contracts, certain monies were paid to the public officials. And that is normally how these transactions are conducted. And it was the same in the Maybe and Johnson case, These are kickbacks which are given to public officials in order to win the contracts.
So that is where we begin to look at it, kickbacks given. However, there is no direct connection as we study the documents between the government officials and Airbus in terms of monies paid. So Airbus admitted that they paid these monies to these intermediaries. How should we consider that piece of information?
Well, I wouldn't want to go into the legal issues because this is a matter that the special prosecutor himself is going to handle. And as a matter of fact, normally when a matter is pending, as in this case, the president has referred the matter to the special prosecutor, I refrain from discussing the legal issues involved because of my previous position as, commissioner of Shard and also a retired judge. So I, as a matter of policy, I don't express an opinion on legal issues involved in a pending case. So I think for me, it's better to leave these issues to Mr. Amido himself and other lawyers who have not held the position that I have held and don't have any restraint in discussing the legal issues, Yeah.
But all the same, you expect that you have confidence in Mr. Amidu that he will be able to come to a logical conclusion.
Yes, he has a very good track record. I mean, he's been described as
citizen vigilante.
Yes, and throughout the period that he's been Deputy Attorney General and then Attorney General, he's demonstrated his competence, his independence. So I have no doubt whatsoever that he has the ability, the integrity, the independence of mind to be able to handle a case like this. I was very pleased when he was appointed, although There are many people who are disappointed that they have not seen the expectation which they had about the office had not been met. Many people were expecting that by this time we would have seen a number of high-profile cases being prosecuted in the courts. But so far as Mr. Hamidou is concerned, I don't have any doubt as to his integrity, his competence, and his ability to discharge his mandate.
So what do you think has accounted for this public perception that he's not performing as well as he may have been expected?
Well, he himself has indicated that he has not had the cooperation from certain state institutions and individuals which he expected. He has also indicated that he doesn't have the right premises or accommodation which he needs for the number of staff that he needs to recruit, and he doesn't have the number of investigators and other personnel which he needs for his office. In the last budget, he was given, I think, 190 million, Ghana cedis. I don't know whether he's been able to access all of that money, So I'm not sure where where to put the blame, whether it is the fact that he has not been given the kind of support that he expected, or whether he himself has not done the number of cases that people expected him to do. I really don't know where the problem lies.
So is he justified in saying what he's saying?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have the facts, so I'm not in a position to comment on the reasons why we have the situation where people are disappointed that he has not demonstrated the kind of diligence or the sort of cases that the people were expecting they would have seen by this time. We are not seeing them in the courts. There was a lot of euphoria in 2017 when the president
appointed him.
Yes, and then, but that euphoria, that expectation has diminished, over the years, because we haven't seen the number of cases that we all expected would have been investigated and prosecuted at this time.
Ghana has not performed well in the past few Corruption Perception Index rankings. Would you say that this diminished euphoria may play a role?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was great expectation in 2017, and therefore our ranking was at a certain level, which has diminished over the years between 2017 and now. In fact, this was one of the findings of the Afrobarometer survey results that were revealed recently, and so apart from that, I think we have seen over the last year or two a number of corruption cases which have not been adequately addressed, and therefore it has affected our ranking. But I think that the main reason for our low ranking, and I consider it low because when you consider that an African country like the Seychelles is ranked, has 26 points, whereas, 66 points.
Yes, whilst we have 41.
Whilst we have 41, I mean, the gap is too much. And given our democratic credentials, I think that it's not it's unsatisfactory. But I think it reflects some kind of stagnation. We've been in the 40s for the last 10 years. The ranking on the Transparency International Corruption Index we've hovered around the 40s. The highest we attained was 47 and 48. And now we've come down to 41. Now, I think, in my view, the main reason for this stagnation is the fact that we have not taken seriously implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Plan. We have adopted a piecemeal approach in fighting corruption, and that was the main reason why we developed the National Anti-Corruption Plan, which is a 10-year plan, 2014 to 2025, 2015 to 2024, and it contains 135 different activities to be undertaken within this 10-year period, and they're divided into short-term, medium-term, and long-term activities. And it adopts a holistic and comprehensive approach in the fight against corruption, adopting a three-pronged approach of public education, prevention initiatives, and effective investigation and prosecution, of crimes. Now, the executive have the primary responsibility for ensuring implementation of the plan, and there has been no indication that the executive is taking this responsibility very seriously. And there is a lot that we need to do to be able to implement the plan.
Like resourcing anti-corruption agencies, for instance.
Yes, and for example, passing important anti-corruption legislation like the Conduct of Public Officers Bill 2013, which deals with assets, declaration of assets. It seeks to improve the legal regime for declaration of assets. So we have a very weak legal regime for assets declaration. It also deals with conflict of interest. It's another area which is very important in the fight against corruption, and which many public officials don't seem to understand, very well. It also deals with gifts, which is another critical area in the fight against corruption. And this bill has been in Parliament since 2013, 2014, and we have been calling for the immediate passing of this bill, but nothing has happened ever since. And so there are a lot of activities which have to be undertaken under the plan. Also, if you look at the Auditor General's reports, you would see year after year there are so many financial irregularities which are reported in the report which is submitted to the Public Accounts Committee. And these financial irregularities occur in almost all the ministries, department, agencies, and especially in the district and municipal assemblies. And no sanctions have been imposed over the years for these irregularities. And also, some of these public institutions which have a role in the implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Plan have not been cooperating with STRAJ, which has a responsibility for monitoring implementation of the plan. They've not been submitting their reports. They've not even budgeted for some of the activities that they are supposed to undertake. So there is a lackadaisical attitude towards implementation of the plan. And I think that is partly responsible for the fact that we haven't seen the kind of movement that we expect. And also, we are very weak when it comes to accountability, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor, of course, has an important role to play, because if there are prosecutions and people are imprisoned for acts of corruption, it will serve as a deterrent.
Exactly.
But we are not seeing enough of prosecutions of persons who are implicated in acts of corruption. So we are very weak when it comes to accountability. And in fact, in the Afrobarometer survey results that were
recently released?
Yes, recently released. Not 53% of people indicated that levels of corruption have increased over the last 2 or 3 years, and also the express concern about the lack of accountability.
And they say that the government's performance in fighting against corruption was also quite poor. It's an interesting perspective that Justice Short is introducing into this conversation. This is Corruption Watch, 18 minutes to the top of the hour, 10 a.m. Justice Emil Short is our guest here. He's the first commissioner of Shraj. We've been discussing, the Airbus Saga, Martin Amidu's role, our CPI ranking, implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, and a bit of the Afrobarometer survey as well. Still a lot more to dig into here on the Super Morning Show. Africa World Airlines, the proud winner of Best Airlines in West Africa, will, effective February 2020, commence 6-time weekly flights to or from Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. This service provides convenience onward connection to or from all our destinations and that of partner airlines. Enjoy premium service with fares starting from $255. Call us toll free 0800 200 200 or visit our website flyafricaworld.com. Africa World Airlines, touching Africa, touching the world.
Oh, on the money, Africa money, okay, the job of poor man they work, rich they enjoy. I say how we go bridge the gap between account and the job. Okay, the job of fat manager they job. Okay, the job of director they job. Okay, the job of.
Now, Sun Lodge Hotel profess celebration of love and promise to make it unforgettable this Valentine's Day. For all the lovely couples, family, and loved ones out there, a package for two and a night stay inclusive of dinner and breakfast at 550 Ghana cedis per couple. A romantic dinner, 160 Ghana cedis per couple, as our plush restaurant. Join us for Valentine's Day dinner on the 14th of February at 6 p.m. for an experience worth repeating. For reservations, email reservations at sunlodgehotel.com. Sunlodge Hotel, an experience worth repeating. The phone number is 0302 244 778 0302 244 778 0202 022 317 or 0202 022 318.
Monkey the work, but who the job? But that mean who the job? And yet who the job? And now hide the storm. Monkey the work, but who the job? But that mean who the job? And yet who the job? And now hide the storm. I think you know Africa before, and yet we get more. Who put Timba, both and more? Yes, we don't know we get all. Won't go eat, won't go young. We are one side, share with 10 years.
We return to our conversation with Justice Emil Short. So we've talked a bit about the generality of the fight against corruption, and we've touched a bit on the Airbus Saga. But going to that, it fascinated me when I was reading about your work with the Maybe and Johnson case and how similar these cases are. So give us a bit of understanding the similarities that existed between the Maybe and Johnson case and this particular Airbus Saga.
Well, both cases were held by the same court, the Southwark Crown Court in the UK. Both cases were investigated by the Serious Fraud Office in the UK, and in both cases, kickbacks were paid to the public officials, and in both cases, the cases were settled and hefty fines imposed on the companies involved. So with the Maybe and Johnson, I think it was, I can't remember.
4.7 million.
Yeah, pounds.
Yes.
Fine that was imposed on the company. And in the Airbus case, I think it's about 3 billion euro that have been imposed. Now, the similarity in the two cases also stems from the fact that these cases are settled on the basis of trying to ensure that the companies are preserved. They can continue working provided they pay a compensation that is fair, reasonable, and proportionate to the criminal activity that they were engaged in. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so once they are able to pay these hefty fines, then they can continue working, and the employees which they have do not lose their jobs. Okay, so that's one consideration that the UK government takes into consideration in settling these cases. Now, in the case of the Maybe and Johnson, when we started investigating the case, of course there were a lot of problems. We were taken to court. I don't need to go into that unless you want me to.
Oh well, so it was basically people said that you had prejudiced yourself.
Yes, I mean I had an interview on Metro TV. I was trying to explain the procedure that I was adopting in conducting the investigation, and it was alleged that I had made prejudicial statements, which therefore should prevent me from continuing with the investigation. So the matter was taken to the High Court. The High Court gave a judgment saying that yes, not only I but the entire commission should be prevented from continuing with the investigation. I wasn't satisfied, so I appealed to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal reversed the High Court judgment and sent the case back to Shraj, for Shraj to continue the investigation.
But at that time you were not there.
At that time I had resigned, so the case was sent back to Shraj. And
has Shraj concluded that investigation?
Well, you would have to ask Shraj that. I'm not aware that the case has been continued. I have no evidence to suggest that the case has been concluded, even though the SFO report in that case was submitted to Shraj, and we got it through the Attorney General, of course, because the UK and Ghana has this mutual legal assistance agreement, whereby if Ghana is investigating a criminal matter like this, where a British company had paid bribes to public officials, and a case has been settled, as in these two cases, and you wanted information, you can apply through the Attorney General for the information, and the UK authorities will be prepared to submit the information. So I believe that in the Airbus case also,
the same would be applied.
The special prosecutor would apply through the Attorney General, because the Minister for Justice is the relevant authority who can apply to the authorities in the UK for the information that is needed, namely the proceedings and the names that have not been mentioned, in the Airbus case. All that information, I assume, will be provided if the necessary application is made, and it means it meets the conditions set out in the Mutual Legal Assistance Act, which is the act that regulates
how this information is exchanged.
The cooperation between the UK and Ghana when it comes to giving assistance, in cases of this nature.
Do you foresee any roadblocks that the special prosecutor may face, given your experience with the Maybe and Johnson case?
I shouldn't think so, because, as I said, we were able to get the Serious Fraud Office UK report and proceedings, and all the information which we needed was provided to Shraj. So I shouldn't think there should be any difficulty. But of course, I can't be absolutely sure about it, because I don't know the details. I'm not familiar with the exact details which might affect the decision by the UK authorities whether to release the information or not. But based on the Maybe and Johnson case, I shouldn't see any impediment or difficulty whatsoever in the special prosecutor getting the necessary information through the Minister for Justice.
Do you think that this can be dealt with quickly? Some anti-corruption campaigners have mentioned that given the pace at which the special prosecutor has dealt with previous cases, this cannot be dealt with as quickly as is expected.
Well, I would assume that the President would want to make sure that the special prosecutor give this priority attention, and that it could be secured as quickly as possible. I don't see why it cannot be done. I can't tell how long it will take, but I think that if it is given prior attention, it can be resolved as quickly as possible. I think it's important in the public interest that the matter is dealt with as quickly as possible.
Before the election?
Oh, I wouldn't want to say that. You know.
But given your experience again with this Maybe and Johnson case, beyond political will, is there anything stopping Mr. Amidu from dealing with this as expeditiously as possible?
I can't see anything that would stop him from dealing with it expeditiously. I can't.
When through the Mutual Legal Assistance Act, the Attorney General, because it's the Attorney General who will do the request.
Yeah, the Minister for Justice. Yes.
And the Minister for Justice.
Yes.
In her role as Minister for Justice, she will make that request.
Yes.
And gets this information.
The information will be sent to the Minister for Justice, who will then transmit or forward the information, to the special prosecutor. In our case, the information was transmitted to the Minister for Justice, and then it was given to Shraj.
Was it transmitted immediately?
I can't tell because I wouldn't know exactly when the Attorney General received it. At the time, Mrs. Betty Muldridis was the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice. She forwarded the information to Shraj. And later on, Mr. Amidu also became Attorney General and Minister for Justice, and he also forwarded supplemental information on the same matter to Shraj.
After Martin Amidu became Attorney General?
Yes, when he became Attorney General.
So could it have been that Betty Muldridis received some information and did not pass it on?
I'm not in a position to say so.
So that means that to an extent, the Attorney General has some discretion on what to pass on.
What I would say is that the Attorney General is required legally and morally to hand over whatever information he or she has received from the UK authorities. As to whether he or she would hand over everything will depend on a lot of factors which I wouldn't want to go into.
Factors such as?
Well, political expediency, and etc.
In this case, we see that the ruling party has already taken a position and is looking to force this issue through as quickly as possible. You think that could influence the pace at which this is going to be investigated?
These are political matters which I wouldn't like to comment on.
In 6 minutes till we wrap up the entire Super Morning Show for this morning, Justice Emil Short and I have been, and all of us really have been talking about this Airbus saga, getting some very interesting legal insight into the Maybe and Johnson case, which is very similar. A few of you have been asking what happened in that time. Well, basically, a company called Maybe and Johnson, which builds and exports bridges, was found to have bribed some government officials of Ghana. 7 of those government officials of Ghana, included at the time the board chair of SNITS, the health minister, Dr. George Sipayanki, a number of other officials there. A few of them had to resign. But before we go, since we have Justice Emil Short here, political party financing and its role in elections. This is an election year, and a lot of people would raise that question. Is there a way that we can confidently deal with this matter? Police political party financing so that the elections are as sane as possible?
Campaign financing or expenses incurred by politicians during their campaigns is a major source of corruption in this country. For example, that let's take the presidential primaries with the NDC one that was held. Each candidate had to submit, I think, 300,000. Initially, it was 400,000, and then a council of elders intervened, and it was reduced to 300,000. Now, after that, if you have to go through the length and breadth of the country to campaign, you can imagine the amount of money that will be spent. Now, it is an open secret, and the politicians have admitted that when they get elected into office, they recover the expenses by raiding the public purse. So it's a very serious matter. In 2008, the IEA drafted a bill called Public Funding of Political Parties. It was discussed, but the matter has not been seriously addressed. So it's something that we need to address seriously because it's a major source of corruption. Also, there is a law which requires the Electoral Commission to make sure that political parties declare their assets and file their accounts. That is also a provision that has not been enforced.
Does it surprise
it's very
you
difficult. It's very difficult, I guess, for the Electoral Commission, but it should be. It's a legal requirement. But over the years, it has not been enforced.
Does it surprise you that the head of the IEA, which designed some of this legislature, is now head of EC, and we are still not seeing some of the enforcement that is expected?
Neither Dr. Afarijan nor
Charlotte Osei
were able to compel the political parties to file their accounts and declare their assets. To my knowledge, I may be wrong, but I think that's a legal provision that has not been complied with over the years, and it doesn't have anything to do with the present electoral commissioner, because I think that it was the same problem
with the people before him.
Yeah.
Right. Before we go, there's currently a lot of agitation in the political space as a result of the voter register and the EC decision to compile a new one. You being a senior statesman, would like to know, what are your thoughts on that, this whole controversy surrounding the new voters register?
I am, as you probably know, the chair of the Eminent Advisory Committee to the Electoral Commission. And recently we met all the political parties. During that meeting, the Electoral Commission made a presentation about its justification for wanting to have a new biometric voters register. And all the other political parties also, about 20 of them, made their presentations for or against the EC's decision.
Was there a fist fight at that meeting?
Well, towards the end, there was almost
blows exchanged.
Yes.
Between Kofi Akpaloo and the General Secretary of the APC.
I don't remember the people who were engaged in that scuffle, but I remember that Archbishop Pamabakal was the one who intervened and restored calm. But yes, so, and after that we decided that the parties
the IPAC, Inter-Party Advisory Committee, or the Inter-Party Resistance Against the New Voters Register.
No. The people who dealt with the electronic. The experts, the IT experts of the political party should meet the IT personnel of the EC and have another engagement, and I don't know whether that has happened, so we have intervened and tried to provide a platform for further consultation and dialogue between the EC and the political parties.
But no headway has been found?
Well, not as yet. Not as yet.
What do you make of the EC's publication of a timetable, even though there's still engagements ongoing about this register?
I think they are still talking about it, but I wouldn't like to comment on the EC's publication. Because of my position as the chair, of the Eminent Advisory Committee and the steps which we have taken to resolve this matter, I have actually refused to give interviews on this matter because we are trying to resolve the matter peacefully. And so I think I would prefer to stick to the efforts which we are making behind the scenes, rather than making statements in the public which might prejudice the peaceful outcome of this matter.
But so where we are now is that the IT experts of the political parties have to meet the IT experts of the EC.
Yes.
Can you tell us if this meeting has taken place?
I'm not aware. No, I don't know whether it has taken place. Yeah.
After that, what happens? After that meeting?
No, I don't know whether the meeting has taken place between the IT experts of the political parties
and that of the EC.
And that of the EC.
I'm asking because I'd like us to understand what's the expected outcome of the meeting. Is it at that point that we expect them to come to a compromise, or after that, what's the next step?
They would have to inform us, and then we can take the matter from there.
Right. Just a short, we would leave off with a quick comment on your assessment on the state of our corruption in the country. You've already mentioned a bit about our lack of commitment, lack of prosecution earlier, but all in all, taking it as a bird's eye view, how do you assess the state of the fight against corruption in Ghana?
I think we are, well, let me put it this way, we are not winning the battle or the fight, the war against corruption. I don't think that the political leadership appreciates what it takes to win the fight against corruption, because when you hear the president talks about corruption, he refers to the fact that there are cases any case which involves his appointees have been referred to the appropriate authorities, and he then goes on to talk about how their party has dealt with the fight against corruption better than the opposing party, and then there is this counter accusation, and that has not been helpful. We haven't seen these two political parties, the NDC and the NPP, putting their heads together to find ways of implementing the National Anti-Corruption Plan. So that is not helping the fight against corruption. And I have advocated that the executive, for example, should have, just as they have an economic team, they should have a governance team that understands the complex phenomenon of corruption and really would take steps to ensure that, for example, the anti-corruption plan there is focus on its implementation. And that way we will see a lot of progress. But
on this issue, Justice, there's a lot of it's quite hydra-headed, and there's a lot of motivation for it. For instance, my attention has been drawn to the fact that the missing tricycles in the northern part of Ghana were found at a Kandahar boys hideout, or if I can call it, a yard belonging to Kandahar boys, like a vigilante group. So you find that some of these issues are so interlinked. Do you think that we have shown the requisite commitment, for instance, looking at the Ayasu West Wogon Commission report and all of that?
Of course, I cannot speak about the report because, the report amounts to a judgment of the High Court, and persons against whom adverse findings are made have the opportunity to appeal to the Court of Appeal within a period of 6 months. So members of the Commission are not allowed by protocol to talk about it, except the Executive Secretary whose mandate has expired. So I cannot talk about our report, nor can I talk about the white paper. But the issue of political vigilantism has been addressed by the enactment of a law. As to whether it is being enforced, I don't know. But, some of these developments are quite worrisome. For example, the excavators that have gone missing, It really demonstrates that there is a lot of corruption that is so prevalent in the system, and not enough is being done to address some of these critical issues.
We just a couple of days ago saw some arrests of politically exposed persons, former executives of political parties, in this missing excavator saga. Do you think that there is that willingness within the political elite to deal with this issue?
Well, I sincerely hope so. And I sincerely hope that where political appointees of the government are implicated in any criminal activity, the matter will be handled by independent institutions like either maybe Shraj, or if it's a matter that can be handled by the special prosecutor, is given to the special prosecutor and not the CID. I say this because, for example, the Australian visa scandal, you know, the political appointees were investigated by the CID. They were exonerated. They came up. The CID has not released the report. We don't know what's in the report, and it's the same with the Interministerial Committee on Galamsey. The individual who was implicated by Anas was investigated by the CID
and exonerated.
Exonerated. The report has not been made public. This does not demonstrate transparency.
Do you think the missing excavators should also be looked at by the special prosecutor?
Well, it might not fall within his mandate.
He's investigating the Anas saga.
Yes, yes. But if it's a matter that falls within the special prosecutor's mandate, I would prefer that he deals with it rather than the CID. Because, you see, the CID is not an independent institution, in my view, vis-a-vis the government. You see, vis-a-vis the government, the CID is not, in my view, an independent institution. So such matters, I believe, should be better investigated by either Shraj or by the special prosecutor if the matters fall within their mandates, rather than being handed over to the CID. And especially when the CID report, which exonerates the government appointees, is not released to the public, you know, and I think that does not help in the fight against corruption.
Justice Short, thank you so much. But before we go, I know that I've craved your indulgence so much. Apologies also, we didn't take the news at the top of the hour. We had to go a bit beyond because of the conversation we are having. But we are celebrating 25 years of Joy FM's existence, and we're calling it 25 years of media excellence here at Joy FM and the Multimedia Group. And we'd like to know your Joy story. What do you remember when you think of Joy FM?
Well, I remember Komla Dumo. I remember his efforts at trying to combat corruption. He actually, when I was in office, brought a complaint to the commission. He was very passionate about the fight against corruption. I think Joy FM has done exceedingly well over the years, and you've set a very high standard. What also I like to commend you for is your forthrightness and moral courage in addressing issues, especially issues to do with corruption and other matters which affect the government. You know, you haven't held back. You've been very forthright. You've been very candid, very open about addressing issues, and you've not been a station which has that tag of being aligned to any political party. There's some stations which we know are being controlled by certain political parties, but you've maintained over the years an independence. You've been very forthright and demonstrated your independence and impartiality, and I think you deserve credit for that.
Thank you very much, Justice Shorts, for your kind words and also for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
Justice Emil Francis Short is the first commissioner of Shraj, and he was our guest this morning on Corruption Watch and the Super Morning Show. This is where we wrap up today's show. Well, my name is Daniel Daze. It's been a